right, I think we're good to get going. Welcome again, everybody, to our November 1st session, Student Employment Office Q&A session. I'd like to take a moment to thank our interpreters for providing us with their services, and we will go ahead and get started. So, purpose for today's discussion, we will talk about some online hiring tool updates and give you a few reminders, as well as cover some of the numbers that we've seen come through that online hire tool. We'll talk about the New York State minimum wage and the fact that that is going up again this year, upcoming breaks and what hours students can work during those breaks. And we are very fortunate to have Lisa, Sarah, and Stephanie Labar with us from the payroll office. Stephanie is new to RIT, so Stephanie, welcome. And they will be here to share some payroll processes, share with you some resources that are available to both you as supervisors and that you can share with your student employees throughout their employment. So little bit of changes within our office over the past couple weeks. We are your SEO representatives, and you will notice that we are short by one person here on our slide if you have been with us for the past few months. We are happy to say that Lakeisha took a role outside of RIT. It was a great opportunity for her, and we wish her the best. And we are also excited to say that Alexander Roche has been promoted to Student Employment Assistant within our office. So he will be taking on those responsibilities that Lakeisha held previously. So anything that you used to reach out to Lakeisha for in the past, Alex will now be your person. And general inquiries can continue to go to our regular student employment email. So we will go ahead and get started. Online hiring tool. First of all, thank you to everybody who has been using it, everybody who has provided us feedback. We have seen over 600 new jobs come through the online hire tool since we've launched it, which is wonderful. We've also seen supervisors initiate over 100 new hire packets. And those now include part 1 of the I-9. So the system is now working properly. I know we did have a glitch at the beginning with Equifax in which they were not appropriately sending out confirmation pages to students with the invitation to schedule an appointment for part 2 of the I-9. That has since been rectified. However, the students that were impacted by that glitch in the past, when we launched, we did email each student individually with instructions on what they needed to do to move forward. So hopefully we got those students over that painful hump that we had there in the beginning. But everything is now operating as it should. When you initiate the new hire packet for a brand new student who's never worked for RIT, they are now getting the emails appropriately the very next morning, inviting them to log into Equifax, complete all of their new hire packet documents, which includes part 1 of the I-9. They can no longer just walk into our office and complete part 1. It has to be done through that link that's provided, which is triggered by your request through the online hire tool. And then once they do complete the I-9, part 1, they are then receiving an email indicating their next steps, which is to schedule an appointment with our office and then come in and complete part 2 of the I-9. That email includes all of the information that they need to complete that I-9, what documents they need to bring, how to schedule an appointment, and the fact that they cannot start working until that is done. Once the I-9 is complete, once part 2 is complete, they are then clear to start working. And the next day you will receive an email indicating that you can now submit the hire paperwork to our office. Couple reminders, the online hire tool has been designed to use actual start dates. So it's not a pay period start date when you're using the online hire tool, it is the actual start date. This online hire system will not allow you to enter a start date that is prior to an I-9 completion date. So if your student doesn't complete the I-9 till today, you can't enter a start date of prior than today. The system will not allow it. So just a note there, make sure you're waiting to receive that email confirmation that your student is eligible to now begin working and that you can go in and submit that hire. And just a note that students are not instantaneously populated in Oracle when they complete part 2 of the I-9. There is a slight delay. They are completing the I-9 with Equifax, which is a third party, and we have to wait for Equifax to feed that information back into Oracle, and that is done in an overnight feed. So if your student completes the I-9 today, then they will not appear until tomorrow for you to submit the hire. So if your student comes in today, they complete their I-9 today and come back to you today and say, hey, my I-9 is done, I'm ready to start working. You can't log in today to put that hire in. You have to wait until tomorrow because the student doesn't exist yet. It doesn't mean the student can't start working today. It means that you can't send the hire information in today. It has to wait until tomorrow when the student is actually populated in our system. Other than that, the system is operating as it should. We have seen, a lot of different submissions come in. If there is ever a situation where we have to reject a hire through the online hiring tool, you as the supervisor who submitted that hire will receive an email indicating that it has been rejected and the reason why. And we try to get as detailed as possible so you understand why it was rejected and what your next steps are to ensure we can get this student hired. But you will receive an email and we will make sure that we communicate that. And we are very timely with those. Our goal at the end of every single business day is to walk out and have nothing sitting in our pending box. We want to make sure that we check it all in, we get it all taken care of, and we move it on. New York State minimum wage is going up. This here on the screen, this is all of the mumbo jumbo from the Department of Labor website. Basically, what this says is that on December 31st, I'm sorry, on January 1st of 2024, the New York State minimum wage is going to go up to $15 an hour. And then for the next 2 years after that, it is going to go up an additional 50 cents an hour. So 2024, it's going to be $15. 2025, it'll be $15.50. 2026, it'll be $16. This is all on the New York State Department of Labor website. If you need to share this with your department leadership so that they know how to budget, they understand what's coming down the pipeline, it is available to you. But you can go out, you can read that, you can send it to them. This is essentially what it's saying is that we are going up. What do you need to do to be ready for that? Essentially nothing. As in the past, any student who falls below that new threshold, that new minimum wage, student employment and payroll will work together to ensure that those rates are brought up to what the minimum wage is. Any student that is currently higher than that wage, we are not going to touch. We are only legally required to bring up any student that falls below that rate to that minimum rate. So whether your student is making, 1420 or 1480, those students are going to be brought up to 15 automatically. And then any other student that you need to take higher than that, you'll need to send us a change form to do so. So we have some upcoming holiday breaks. We have Thanksgiving break coming up at the end of this month. Our IT will be closing at 2 p.m. on Wednesday, the 22nd, and it will be closed on Thursday and Friday, the 23rd and 24th, which are RIT recognized holidays. Student employees are entitled to the same early release pay as faculty and staff for Wednesday, the 22nd. So any student who would be working up until 5 p.m. on that day would be entitled to that 3 hours of early release pay. Now, students working after 5 p.m. are not entitled to that pay, but you need to have the conversation with your student staff indicating that, hey, RIT is closed Wednesday evening, all day Thursday, all day Friday. You are not to work that day. We are not open. You are not to report to work that day. That way they know ahead of time what the expectations are, and they know that, they're free and clear to go home. But any student that would have been working between 2 and 5 on that Wednesday is entitled to early closure. Additionally, Because RIT recognizes Thursday and Friday as holidays, any hours reported on those two days would be paid holiday pay, which is 1.5 times the regular hourly rate. If you do not want your students to work, then you are going to have that conversation ahead of time and tell them, hey, those are RIT holidays. There's to be no work done that day. If they do work and report hours, we are legally required to pay them. So it's beneficial to have that conversation ahead of time than to have that conversation afterwards and say, hey, you really shouldn't have worked, but now that impacts your budget. So if you don't have the budget to pay that 1.5 times, make sure you're having those conversations with your students. And as a reminder, Thanksgiving break is not considered an academic break. So students cannot exceed 20 hours a week for that for that period, that Thanksgiving break. Not an academic break, they have to maintain 20 hours a week. Winter break, however, is an academic break, and they can exceed 40 hours. Or I'm sorry, they can exceed 20 hours. Students may begin working additional hours when they finish their finals. So when they have completed all of their finals, they have completed all of their academic responsibilities, projects, papers, whatever. Once they are finished, they can start working additional hours. So that day may be different for your students. You're going to want to have the conversation with your students to find out when they are available to start working. You may have one that's available to start working extra right away because they have no finals, no papers, no projects, and another one that doesn't have a final until the last day of finals. So their schedule is different. They can start working extra hours on different days. Again, RIT closes at 2 p.m. on Friday, December 22nd. Student employees are again entitled to the same early release pay as faculty and staff for that day if they were scheduled and had planned to report to work that day. RIT recognizes Monday, the 23rd through Friday, the 29th, and Monday, the 1st of January as holidays, as RIT holidays. So what that means is any hours reported on those days are paid 1.5 times the regular hourly rate. If you have students that report any hours during those days, Kronos will calculate them at 1.5 times holiday pay. So you really need to have the conversation with your students ahead of time to ensure that they understand when and how much they can work. It is at your discretion whether or not you want to allow student employees to work on RIT designated holidays. We won't tell you whether or not you can allow them to work. It's at your discretion. However, one thing you really need to keep in mind is when student employees are working, they really should have somebody that they can communicate with if they have any issues, questions, time card problems, somebody that's available for them to reach out to within the department. So if your department is not planning to have anybody working to be available for your student employees, then it's a really, really good idea. And we strongly suggest that you not have your student employees work because they won't have anybody to communicate with. They won't have anybody to reach out to. Additionally, somebody is going to be required to sign off on payroll. So if you have students reporting hours, then somebody within the department needs to review those hours and make sure that they get signed off on appropriately. And if students are working remotely and reporting hours, they need to have somebody to report those hours to. So a lot to keep in mind, a lot to discuss within your department because these are all at department discretion. But if you intend to have students working, then they need to have the support while they are working to ensure that they're doing their job and reporting their hours appropriately. If you don't want them to work, set those expectations up front. We do allow students to work remotely during the winter break. They must adhere to the remote work policy. And what that is that they may work no more than 30 calendar days remotely outside of New York State or in New York City. These 30 calendar days begin on the very first day that they start working remotely and end 30 days later, 30 consecutive days later, regardless of how many days of actual work they put in that 30-day time period. So if they start on December 22nd working remotely, then 30 days from December 22nd, which would be January 21st, I believe, they must cease working remotely. Now, most students will be back in Rochester by then, so that's really not an issue. But if you have students that leave at the very beginning of winter break, then they may exceed, they may use that 30 calendar days up pretty quickly and then maybe not be able to work for a week or so before they return to Rochester. As a reminder, all work must be done within the US. We cannot support remote work outside of the US. If you have students who are leaving the country to go home, they cannot work while they're outside of the country. And students working in their dorms or in their apartments in Rochester, for the sake of student employment, they are not considered remote. We have a lot of students that work locally in their dorms, in their apartments. That's not considered remote work. Remote work for student employees is outside of New York State or in New York City. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Lisa and Stephanie. So I am going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so that they can do so. If you have questions at any time, drop them in the Q&A function. We will get to all of those questions once we get through the payroll piece of it. And hopefully we can answer those questions before we even get to the Q&A. And so it's all yours, Lisa and Stephanie.
Thank you, Rachel. Let me just start sharing my screen here. All right, guys. Not seeing my PowerPoint. There it is. Sorry. Okay, so anyway, thank you, Rachel, and to our SEO colleagues for inviting us today, and to all of you for being here. Today, we're going to cover some of the basics about the payroll process and some of the tools and resources as they pertain to the student worker population. And first, I'm going to introduce you to Stephanie Labar. She's our payroll admin and outreach specialist. She joined us in July, and we're really happy to have her with us. She's going to get us started today. Stephanie?
Hello. We want to take a couple minutes just to review with you some of the payroll processes and helpful resources, including the various training materials that are available to you. Students are paid on a bi-weekly schedule. The pay period begins on Friday and ends on the following Thursday, with pay dates being every other Friday, which is 8 days after the pay period end. You can find a copy of the different schedules on our payroll site, which we've included a snip of here. We highly recommend printing these schedules off and having them available for your reference. Another important day to point out here are sign-off days. These occur the day after the payroll ends. This is the day you have to approve your time cards. Approval should be completed by 11 a.m. on sign-off days. And again, here's a snip of that particular schedule posted on the payroll website, which gives you all those dates. A couple of things to note about the biweekly payroll schedule. You'll be utilizing Kronos timekeeping to view and manage student time cards. I have found that the Kronos supervisor training that is available through Talent Roadmap to be extremely useful. It's about 90 minutes long, and it shows you how to manage the time cards, run reports, and points out some important laws and regulations regarding student hours and breaks. If you have technical issues with Kronos, these are typically not fielded by payroll, and you should reach out to RIT Service Center by visiting help.rit.edu, or you can call them at 475-5000. It's also very important to review time cards throughout each pay period for any errors and missed punches. Correcting these as you go along will assist with a smooth sign-off day for both yourself and us. Any students' payroll corrections must be done through Oracle's online application, which you may or may not have access to, and we will walk you through doing that in the next couple slides. The online payroll request will allow you to enter missed time in a previous pay period for active students, co-ops, and hourly graduate assistants. Please note that this system is not available for staff or temporary employees. The system will allow you to view all hours paid to your students in previous pay period and will automatically calculate remaining hours, shift differentials, and OT if applicable. And again, the deadline for these changes is 11 a.m. on sign-off Fridays. Late or incomplete submissions may delay payment to the following pay period. If you have not already done so, you must self-request Oracle access to the application. And Lisa's gonna tell you a little bit more about how to do that with some of our training resources.
Thanks, Steph.
You're welcome.
One of the great resources out on the controller's office website is a training video page. This gives you a little overview of the Oracle options available. The videos are about 5 minutes or less, so they're pretty quick and very, very well done. There's different topics, procurement cards, SPA, etc. But for purposes of today, we're going to just focus on the ones that are pertinent to the student role, the student worker role. So as Stephanie was mentioning, you can do student payroll changes. They must be done through the Oracle online payroll change application. So if you don't already have that application in your Oracle responsibilities, you can go to the CTO training resources page and watch this video. It's a really quick process to self-request that access. It'll probably take you a minute or two, and then it will show up in your list of responsibilities for any time that you need to submit a change for your student workers. Conversely, payroll corrections for staff, they're not done through the online application. We do have the payroll change form available for those type of corrections out on the payroll website. So we're just going to show you a couple of the videos that are pertinent to the student worker role. The first one is called Accessing Employee Pay Stubs in Oracle. That's a key video. I would definitely promote that to your student workers. Often we get questions that they're not sure about what they've been paid. They don't understand the pay period parameters. And so they think they got shorted or, unpaid. And sometimes that does happen, but this is a really great resource to get them familiar with. Hey, they can check their own pay stub, understand what the dates are, understand what the hours were. And if there truly are corrections needed, they can reach out to you directly. So again, just a really short video for them to get familiar with. And the other video that gets a lot of use is the direct deposit video. It just walks people through how to access that application in employee self-service in Oracle and how to add banks or change direct deposits. So these are some great resources for you to pass along to your student workers. On our payroll website, we have a lot of resources available. Some of the things you might want to pass along to the students again, these are links primarily to self-service for the direct deposit, for W-2, and to change tax withholdings. These tiles that you see in the image here will land them right at the Oracle login page so that they can log into student employee self-service and then update those direct deposits or tax withholdings or access their W-2s for each year that they were a student worker at RIT. So those links are available on the payroll website. We also have some Kronos references, some detail about the different pay codes in Kronos, and not all of them will be available to the student workers. They won't show up in the time cards, but so if you're doing the reviews or the entries in the time cards, you'll see that it's a more limited list that you have in the student time card versus a staff time card. But those pay codes are out there for you to get familiar with. If your students have questions, you can use that as a good reference. There's also some detail about overlapping punches and who those contacts are for the different departments. And just a couple reminders, we want, as the students are thinking about their upcoming breaks, as Rachel mentioned, the Thanksgiving break is more of a shorter break. So, but for purposes of the longer break with the winter intercession, students are going to be gone for a month or so. And, where if they're getting a paper check, where's that paycheck going to be mailed? Because we do mail those checks. If they're here during the academic year, they want their checks typically sent to their apartment or dorm location. But if they're going home for an extended period, they're going to want to think about changing their addresses. They're also going to think about signing up for direct deposit. If they're getting paper checks, these checks can get lost, they get sent to the wrong address, whatever it is. We do want to always encourage them to go direct deposit, and they never have to worry about being paid on time. That money's always there on payday first thing in the morning. So those two things, we want to, take the opportunity to remind your students, sign up for direct deposit, update your addresses if you have paper checks and want them to be mailed elsewhere. Payroll does send out regular emails on both those topics. So you can just ask them to watch for those emails, and we outline the instructions, including the videos where they're applicable. And, that can be a good reminder to take action. Lastly, we just, you can't stress enough, don't forget to punch. If the kids are using time clocks, if the students are using time clocks, we want to make sure that they're punching in and out. And for those who are working multiple jobs on campus, it's important for them to use the right badge number when they clock in, so that the hours and the in and out punches land on the proper time card. So with that, we'll open it up to any questions you may have and pass it back to Rachel.
Thanks, Lisa and Stephanie. We do have some questions that have come in, so I will go through those, some for you and some for me. But really quick, I did want to just touch on that direct deposit. The new hire packet that students receive from Equifax when they're hired, when you initiate that new hire packet, that includes direct deposit sign up. So students are getting that direct deposit information in their new hire packet, and it has to be completed in order for the new hire packet itself to be considered completed. So whether they sign up for direct deposit or sign up for a paper paycheck, they are getting that direct deposit information in their email in the new hire packet. So encourage your students to get that taken care of as quickly as possible, and certainly to sign up for direct deposit. The one thing that we want to try and avoid is students changing their address every semester or every year when they change, their location in Rochester, so that they can get their paper paycheck in the mail, because that could impact their W-2 down the road. If they at some point forget to update their address and their W-2 goes to a former address, then there's a delay and it's a mess. So we really encourage that direct deposit sign up to avoid all of those future issues. All right, Lisa and Stephanie, I'm going to go through some of these questions. When they're for you, I will certainly punt them over to you. First of all, Michelle asked if we can get the PowerPoint via email. Yes, we certainly can send this out via email. I'm sure there's some slides in there that you want to share with your leadership team just regarding upcoming breaks and et cetera. So if you want the PowerPoint, email our student employment regular department email, studentemployment@rit.edu, and I will ensure that you get a copy of the PowerPoint. This session is recorded, so this entire session will be available on our YouTube channel. You do have to give it a couple days because it takes YouTube a little bit of time to generate the closed captioning. So we don't make it viewable to the public until that closed captioning is ready. So it's usually available the Monday following the session on our YouTube channel. But we can send the PowerPoint out as well, so you have those individual slides to share. If students work the weekend of Thanksgiving, meaning Saturday 11/25 or Sunday 11/26, is that regular pay? And so the answer to that is yes. The Saturday and Sunday are not considered RIT holidays, and so students can work and would be paid regular pay. The only students that would be paid time and a half for Sunday would be co-op students. But any regular student worker who reports hours on Saturday or Sunday would be paid regular pay. Lisa, I'll kick this one to you. The question is, do we need to add approved with pay for early dismissals?
Yes, for the early release time for the day before Thanksgiving and the break, the last day before Christmas break. We do typically use approved with pay for those hours, those 3 hours. But officially that will be outlined in the instructions from HR that are communicated to campus. But yes, it is typically approved with pay. We also will have a notification on our payroll mailbox for any of you who are emailing that payroll@rit.edu address. You will typically see a banner that kind of outlines what code to use there as well.
Great, thank you. Abby asks, regarding the definition of remote work outside of New York State, et cetera, does that mean students we have working for us remotely, but are local in Rochester should be coming into the office, or is it just that they are not considered remote? So Abby, the answer to that is that for student employees, we do not consider that remote work. The only time we consider a student working remotely is if they are outside of New York State or in New York City. So here in Rochester, working in their dorm, working in their apartment, it doesn't need to be reported as remote work. It is not considered remote. This one is for Lisa and Stephanie. Not sure if I heard this correctly. Did the Kronos sign-off deadline change to 11 a.m. on sign-off day? I thought it was 6 p.m.
Well, here's the thing. We ask that people get all of their corrections in as early as possible. It's not that things won't get in necessarily after the 11 a.m. deadline. We just like to encourage for the purposes of getting as much into the payroll as possible. We have a lot of different information and updates coming in on that sign-off day. So the earlier you can get them in, the better. So we do like to have that 11 a.m. bar. We have been communicating that more often. So it's just good practice. It's not a hard deadline though, to your point.
Great, thanks, Lisa.
Yeah.
I'm sure the later things come in, the later you guys have to stay. So
this is also true.
Let's be good peers and get everything to payroll in a timely manner so they can get out and enjoy their Friday. Okay, so what is the latest time that we can sign off on time cards on sign off Friday? Is that the 11 a.m. or 6 p.m.?
The same premise. I mean, basically we want everything to be done Friday. There will be some reminders that are auto-generated by Kronos if time cards are not signed off, I believe at noon and 3 p.m. So you will get those notifications, but you know, try to have that done as soon as possible on Friday. In summers, we open up the sign off to Thursdays because a lot of people do take Fridays off, but you'll want to make sure that all of the hours are in, that everything's correct before you sign off, no matter when it is. And just always good practice to have that done Friday. We do tend to periodically throughout the year, given bank holidays or whatnot, we do process on Saturdays, early Saturday mornings. So, you know, the sooner the better on Friday. Good practice.
Great. Amanda, do you think that you could grab the link for the YouTube channel and throw it in the chat? I do have a question in the Q&A asking for that link. So if you could throw it up in the chat would be great.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Sarah asks, and I think this is just kind of an extension on a previous question. How should we report the early closure hours for students who would normally be working? Should we just add these hours to Kronos?
Yes. Yes, you should. Add them to Kronos. The code's going to be approved with pay. And again, only if they were scheduled to work those hours to begin with.
Okay. What is the earliest time cards can be signed off? I've tried to do it at midnight and could not do it.
I've tried to do it at midnight and it usually is okay once you turn the corner on the day. But you know, you can't do it until Friday, and you definitely want to make sure that all of the hours have been entered properly before you do. But Friday, you know, the wee hours of Friday morning, my experience is that you can sign off at that time too.
Great. This is more of a comment than a question. It says, just a heads up that emails I've received from payroll this week list the deadline as 4 p.m. Not sure if that is something you want to have changed.
Oh, thank you for that. I appreciate that. We'll look into the auto-generated email.
Great. This is a question for us. If a student sends a doctor's note excusing them from work for the unforeseeable future, is there anything I need to do? This is a great question. Yes, there is a few things that you need to do. First of all, your student may be eligible for some type of disability, paid sick leave, something along those lines, depending on how long they're going to be out, what the nature is of their absence, et cetera. So what you want to do is put them in touch with Patricia Britt. She is our benefits specialist for our IT, and she will take it from there. So if you have a student that comes to you and says, I'm going to be out, my doctor took me out of work for, the next 8 weeks or the unforeseeable future, they may be entitled to some sort of disability pay, whether it's New York State disability or paid sick leave or something. But Patricia Britt is going to be the person you want to reach out to and have your student get in touch with her. She will kick it off. She will get them going. She will file the claim, and then it gets turned over to Prudential to investigate. But yes, absolutely. The other thing I do want to note is that if your student were to come to you and say, I'm sorry, Amanda, you popped in. Is there something you want to add?
Just that I don't have permissions to send that link to the full chat, so I was going to send it to you if you could send it out to the greater group for the YouTube channel.
Of course I can. No problem. Okay, let me just forward this on really quick because I'm really bad at doing more than one thing at a time. There we go. So that link should have gone out to everybody. That way you can go and there's lots of great recordings on there. All of our past sessions are on there. They're all dated, so you know what the dates of those past Q&A sessions are. We also have a short tutorial. It's about 10 minutes on how to use the online hire tool. It's really a step-by-step. It walks you through how to use it, how to submit the request for a new hire packet, how to submit a hire. So all that's out there on the YouTube channel. I was saying, if one of your students were to come to you and say, I have to quit, I have to leave, I have to take time off because I have to go home and care for my mom who is ill, or, I have to go home and care for an ill sibling, or help out. Your student might actually be eligible for paid family leave. Again, that is not something that you need to determine or I determine. That is something that Prudential will determine, but we have the responsibility to make our student aware that, hey, you may be eligible for this benefit. Reach out to PJ Britt. She will get them moving on that, get them going. But us being the first point of contact, meaning you as their direct supervisor, being their first point of contact here, it is up to you to let them know that that benefit may be available to them. So again, if your student, and we see it, not very often, but occasionally we see a student who says, I have to take a leave of absence from the university. I have to go home and care for an ailing father. Paid family leave is there to help them be able to continue to support themselves financially while they're doing this. And it is a benefit available to our student employees as well. Okay. So this question is, if a student needs to be terminated in the middle of a semester, are there policies or procedures available that we should follow? This is a great question. Student employment doesn't always work out. We get that. Sometimes you hire a student and it's just not a good fit for either you or the student. And when that happens, sometimes it is best to part ways. What we ask is that before you just immediately move to termination, you make a good faith effort to make this work. And by that, I mean, you start the disciplinary process, you have candid conversations with your students, and you follow up with them. If you have a student, let's say, who is consistently late by 15, 20 minutes every shift, and you say nothing, your silence is acceptance. Your silence is saying, hey, it's okay that you're showing up late. It's fine. And then a month down the road, now you're angry because they've been showing up every single day, 20 minutes late, but they didn't know that that wasn't okay because you haven't told them up to this point. Stay on top of those things. Sit down and have the conversations. We do ask that whenever you are planning to move to termination, you reach out to our office first and have the discussion with us so we can ensure that, yes, you've done your due diligence. Yes, we have everything in place that we need to terminate, and this is not going to come back and bite us in the future. Discipline, start with a verbal warning, move to a written warning, and then, sometimes a final written warning, sometimes termination is the next step. It really depends on the nature of the infractions. But we can't go from employment to termination if we haven't really done our due diligence in between. Now, there's some different scenarios where termination would be appropriate. Theft, obviously, termination is appropriate. Showing up to work under the influence, fighting at work, those type of things, yes, termination would be appropriate. Sometimes there's situations where instead of moving to termination, you would actually go with a suspension pending investigation. Those type of things would be, let's say, time card theft, where a student is reporting hours on their time card that they're not actually working. Maybe the student is punching in their dorm, which is over by Gracie's, but they actually work in shop 1, which is in Global Village. So it takes them 10 minutes or 15 minutes to walk to their job. That's not okay. And if the student knows that this is a problem and continues to do this, then that would be a situation where you would actually get public safety involved, and they will investigate that and let you know what they find and that termination is appropriate. Time card theft is not okay. But those are things that we bring other entities in to help us investigate. So the one thing that we really do ask is, if you're thinking of moving to termination, you reach out and have a discussion with us first so that we can see what you've done up to this point. Have you sat down with the student? Does the student understand what they're doing wrong? Have you created a performance improvement plan? Have you provided the student with any type of discipline up to this point? And if the answer to all of that is yes, and you can send that to us, then we will 99% of the time support that termination. If the answer to that is no, but I'm just, he's been doing this for 6 weeks and I'm really frustrated at this point. Okay, I understand your frustration, and now we need to start the disciplinary process because you haven't done anything up to this point. We have to understand that we are dealing with many students who've never worked before. And there's a lot of reasons for that. They may never have had to work before. They may have been so involved in sports and extracurricular activities that they didn't have the time to work before. And now they have a federal work study award that they need to use, and they want to earn their money. And so now they're getting a job. So you may be dealing with students who have no employment etiquette whatsoever. They don't know what it means to be an employee. What might be common sense to you and I, hey, punching in at the time clock that's in your building, might not be common sense to a student who's never had a job before. And we're also dealing with students who, spent a lot of time at home during COVID and didn't have the opportunity to work. So it's a different type of student that we have now. And a lot of them come to us without any employment experience. So before we move straight to termination, we want to make sure that we are providing them with the guidance to become a good employee. And that way, when they leave RIT, they have learned not only their academics, but they have also learned how to be a functioning employee in an business environment. That was a long answer to a question, and I apologize, but it felt like important information. Okay, so if I have a student working this semester and recently updated my office that they can work Next semester, would I have to go through the studenthire.rit.edu process to rehire them? On our previous hire form, we put a pay period end date of 12/28/23. Continuation of the above question, will they disappear in Kronos? This is a great question. So no, if you get the change form to our office prior to 12/28/23, we can extend the job in Oracle without you having to go through the rit.edu student hire process. If you wait until after that December 28th, 23 date, then you'll have to rehire the student. We can't extend a job that has ended. So, you know, the path forward really depends on you. If you send us that change form prior to the end date, we can extend it. If you wait until after the end date, you're going to have to rehire. A change form it is. That's what they say. Great. So great questions. We've still got about 10 more minutes and we're happy to answer anything. I mean, if you have questions about anything payroll related, student employment related, we're happy to answer all of them. All right.
I do want to make one clarification before we move on. So one person mentioned the email that comes out that has the 4 o'clock deadline for Chrono sign up. So there should be a distinction made. So we talked about an 11 o'clock deadline for or soft deadline for submitting payroll corrections versus sign off days, signing off on time cards, which has a little bit of a later deadline. Obviously, you're going to get those reminders at noon and 3 if you haven't signed off. So again, you know, reiterating that do it as soon as possible, but you do have, for purposes of approving time cards, you do have the majority of the day on Friday to do that. So just wanted to clarify that.
Great. Okay, I have 2 questions that just came in. One's really easy and one's a little complicated. So I'm going to go with the easy one first. Michael asks, with the new system, what is the best way to end date a departing student? You can either use the online termination function through Oracle, which you would go in and end date your student right through Oracle. It's not the studenthire.rit.edu. It's in your Oracle responsibilities. Or you can send us a change form and we can end date it. So one of those 2 options. The online termination feature is really quick and easy. If you need instructions on how to do it, reach out to our office and we'll send you those instructions. Okay, this other one is a little bit more complex. Students had reported multiple times that the Kronos clock messes with the times, device 780101, and I believe is located at SLA. Example, the punch in is out and vice versa, or even discrepancies on the time they are sure they begin or finish working. Okay, so it sounds like there are some concerns about this specific Kronos time clock device. Have we had any complaints about this device? In cases like this, what time is the appropriate to sign off for? Okay, this is somewhat complex. My recommendation would be to, oh goodness. I guess, Lisa, would we send this to possibly Sean to investigate? I'm not quite sure where to go with this, if it's a time clock.
The best
concern.
approach, I mean, obviously if it's having recurring issues, I would assume he's aware of it. You know, to have the student work with the supervisor, the Krono supervisor, to make sure that the punches, you know, which punches are in error, open a ticket with the RIT service center, which will flag that for Sean. It'll be documented and then they can do some review in real time. So as soon as you notice that, get that ticket opened. If there's some kind of a glitch with the clock and it needs to be serviced or replaced, you know, we'd want to know about that. But on the other side of that, you know, you definitely want to make any corrections in Kronos that should be made so that the student is paid properly. But definitely encourage the opening of a ticket as the best route rather than emailing Sean directly. They're probably going to bounce you back to the service center anyway, but it's always that first point of contact for any technical Kronos related issues.
Great.
That said, I have not heard anything about a specific clock, but you know, we are a bit removed from the timekeeping side as far as the technical stuff goes.
Yep. Still have a couple minutes. Happy to answer anything, any payroll questions, any SEO questions, or anything that we can help clarify. I know we've still got quite a few people on the call, so give it another minute or so, and if no more questions come in, we can call it good, but I hate to leave time on the table if people have concerns.
Build up a good amount of time, a lot of great content, so thank you.
We generally do go for just about the full hour. And a lot of this is driven by, our supervisors that are on the call. The questions that you guys have really form these sessions and then give us the ideas for following sessions. Who should we invite from the campus? And again, I lean on all of you, our supervisors, to send us questions, send us recommendations. If there's somebody that you work with in your department that you think would be a great resource for the rest of the campus supervisors, send it to me. I'm happy to do some outreach and see what we can do about getting them as a guest panelist. We've had some great panelists. Payroll is always one of our favorites because you guys, we work so closely together, but we've brought in folks from Office of Legal Affairs and benefits and risk management and so many different partners that some of these have been recommendations from our on-campus supervisors, which we appreciate. So I haven't had any new questions come in. I think that means that everybody is good. If you want a copy of the PowerPoint, please feel free to shoot an email to studentemployment@rit.edu and we will get that out to you. Lisa and Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us again. It was great information, great for our supervisors to be able to connect one-on-one with you through this. So thank you. And I'm hoping that we will have one or both of you again in the future as a panelist.
Thanks, Rachel.
Yes, thank you.
Yep. Thank you to our interpreters. We always appreciate the service that you provide. And everyone else, have a great weekend. Stay warm.
Take care.